The title was done and dusted already on Saturday, but that didn't stop Manchester City from getting another victory, this time with essentially their B team, as they played against Chelsea and won 1-0. And if they win their remaining 2 matches, they'll have 94 points for the season, which will be one more than last season. 3 consecutive league titles, 5 out of the last 6. More and more accolades for Pep Guardiola. Luis Miguel Echegaray in the house will have, hopefully, Mark Ogden from the Etihad if Oasis and We Are the Champions stops playing. But we do have Janusz Michallik already from the get-go. Janusz, 1-0 to Manchester City with essentially their B team. Julian Alvarez, by the way, 17 goals in his first season. A lot to discuss. Reaction overall as they get another victory, Manchester City and Pep Guardiola.
Well, I mean, as we've been saying, worthy winners because they know how to manage the season and obviously winning 3 straight, 5 out of 6. If it wasn't for that wonderful season from Liverpool, would it be 6 from 6? I mean, that's a dynasty. You know, we're talking about Manchester United, and now they're, I don't know who the noisy neighbors are at the moment, but I think we all understand what sort of last few seasons Manchester City has had. So absolutely wonderful. This is a team that's used to coming from behind. 5 of last 6 seasons, 5 or 5+ points behind, and I think it was 8 at some stage not long ago to Arsenal. So managing the season, it's great. You know, they used to say it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? I don't know if I believed that until Manchester City came to the levels that they are right now, Luis, because it's absolutely wonderful. And as I've said, towards the end of the season, they just get it done and put an incredible pressure on their opponents because of the quality of squad they have. And we saw it today.
Yeah, you have to be almost perfect, if not perfect, if you even have a chance against Manchester City, as Arsenal, of course, sure, they led for 248 days. And yet, as you said, Manchester City just kept coming back. Let's focus on the game today for a second. Janusz, obviously the title was done, and Pep Guardiola decided to, put out those players that are also part of this massive achievement that perhaps don't get as many minutes as the likes of Kevin De Bruyne or Erling Haaland. What did you make of the performance and the lineup today? I'm sure many fantasy Premier League people were very upset at it.
Oh, I don't know. I think they understood that this was going to be the case with still 2 massive prizes in front of them, FA Cup and Champions League as well. I didn't make too much out of it, really. Just looking at the different positioning of Phil Foden, who I suppose didn't have a great season. Not to say that 10 goals and 5 assists in the Premier League isn't great. He's had some injuries, but I think one player that I remember making a note ahead of the season thinking, yeah, that should have been better. But you saw today in a different position, a position that he's played already. And from what we're hearing, it's going to be a position that he may be playing more in starting next season. And you saw how wonderful he was between the lines, obviously getting a lot more of the ball and, very, very tidy. And you have to be technically superb. You have to be De Bruyne. You have to be Gundogan, knowing when to stay, when to go, when to move, when to just rest and stay away from the game, because that's important. I think players forget very often that in that position in the center of the park, sometimes you don't have to participate at all times. In fact, you're better off being quiet a little bit. So maybe the opposition forgets about you. Other than that, it's just, first 10, 11, 12 minutes, on the first goal. Just think about that. The only shot they had on the goal for the longest time, which was the goal, like knife through butter, wasn't it, for them, the way they scored that goal.
Yeah, it was after a mistake from the Chelsea midfield, and then boom, in a heartbeat, Manchester City get that lead. Hey, let's talk a little bit about, go ahead.
No, I think it was Fofana, I think, wasn't it? That it was an errant pass. Cole Palmer just kind of driving through. Thiago Silva showed his age, really not sure what he was doing in terms of coverage of Alvarez. So, I mean, they can hit you in so many different ways. And then in the end, I thought it was awful from Chelsea, by the way, in the first half. In the second half, it was a little bit better, but I just wonder if it was, maybe Manchester City kind of, waiting for the final whistle and for the celebrations.
Yeah, it was definitely a season for Chelsea to forget. We'll have to see what happens next season with the reported pending incoming of Mauricio Pochettino, but that's for another day. Hey, a lot of young players from Manchester City obviously started today. Wanted to ask you quickly about Julian Alvarez, because, he scored 17 goals. Araña comes from River Plate. And, were it not for all the massive headlights of Erling Haaland, it's worth saying that Julian Alvarez also had a really good debut season.
Well, absolutely, and as we were listening during the game through the commentary, just imagine how many goals he would have had if Erling Haaland wasn't there, right? So I mean, he pays the price for that, but I think there's always a place, there's always a rotation. I think he's the sort of player that you can play in many different positions, of course, and so I mean, as young as he is, great experience already, wonderful World Cup. What did he have? 4 goals there, and as you've mentioned, I think 9 goals here in the Premier League alone. So for as little as he's played in a way, I think obviously a player that's going to have to continue to develop, knowing that there isn't going to be a lot of opportunities in the starting lineup for as long as Erling Haaland continues to score at a rate that he does. I don't suspect that Haaland is going to better this season. That would be just absolutely incredible. But I think he's going to get his goal. So for Julian Alvarez, absolutely wonderful. And look, there's a lot of players like him there that would play or start elsewhere. But as I think Pep Guardiola was saying, kind of paraphrasing, look, if at one point you want to leave Manchester City, you're going to make history anyway. You're going to leave with a lot of trophies, and that's what you have to deal with. So, yeah, great season for a young player that just in the beginning of his career, and look how much experience he's already gotten and how many trophies he's already won.
Yeah, and of course, this isn't over. As you mentioned, they have the treble quest, of course, the Champions League and the FA Cup. They've got 2 remaining matches as well, Manchester City as well, Brighton and Brentford. What do you expect there from Pep Guardiola? Do you continue? I expect a rotational system here all the way leading up to the Champions League and FA Cup final.
Well, absolutely. He's, we pretty much know what the lineup is going to be for those games. If everybody stays healthy, I think he's going to want to continue to drive his team. You look at this season and you say, I mean, it may be historic, but when it comes to Premier League, it wasn't the best, right? When you look at 4 losses and in particular the four draws. I mean, just have to look at even the draws against Forest, Everton, Villa, and Newcastle. Some of the losses against big teams, that's for sure, with the exception of that loss to Brentford at home. But in the end, 93 goals scored, best in the league, 31 conceded, best in the league as well. So it's not bad, but statistically, probably, not the best that they've had. So eyes on the prize right now, and it's not going to be easy. And think about it. If they falter at one, I wonder what the narrative is going to be. It's going to be a bad season for Manchester City, right? Because the expectations are so high. They've achieved, I still think, a massive goal, because you have to do it over the course of the season, and they continue to excel in the Premier League, and they are so close now for that prize that has eluded them, and that's the Champions League. So we'll see. And Manchester United, I mean, it would be a special season in so many ways.
Let me ask you this. Let's play the hypothetical game here, just for clicks. I want to get your opinion, and I'm sure that you've been asked this, but let's say the treble does happen. Okay, Champions League is done, the FA Cup is done. Should Pep Guardiola just say, all right, I've done my time here, it's time for somebody else to come in, or should he stay to continue? What do you think?
No, I think he should stay. He wants to stay. I don't know. He's changed his mind long time ago. Remember, it used to be kind of 3 years at teams, and he needed his rest. I think he's being driven by this team, because I think that, this team does everything that he asks them to do, and that's not so easy. Even looking ahead of this season, I mean, thinking now, what can stop, or which team can stop Manchester City from getting another win next year, quadruple, right? And I don't think there's any team that can even come close without even seeing the transfer window. It's just not going to happen. The only thing that can stop Manchester City is if the players show lack of hunger. That's the only thing that can stop them. But I think that also drives Pep Guardiola to see if they can continuously, because we talk about Liverpool, cycle's over maybe. Arsenal, cycle was over. Manchester United, cycle was over. And of course, the cycle will come to an end. But the cycle will come to an end when Pep Guardiola leaves. And I think he feels comfortable. I think he's got teams, players that are hungry. Look at Haaland just getting here. 52 goals, 36 in the Premier League. I mean, that's incredible. We just talked about Julian Alvarez. We've talked talk about Phil Foden, that's still very young. We talk about, how he's developed some of these players, because the best players continue to play at the highest of levels, right? I mean, and I'll include Haaland, but he's developed during the season under him. Rico Lewis, another player that's developed. Jack Grealish, look at the changes he's made. So he's making these players better. Akanji, another player that comes to mind. Don't know if I saw this comment from him. So the spine of the team is there, and it's incredible. Ederson, arguably the best in the world, the top 3, let's put it that way. Ruben Dias, incredible. Rodri, nobody else like him, right? Somebody told me the other day that he's Busquets with muscles. I think it's funny, but I also think it's true as well. And then, of course, the other part of that spine, Kevin De Bruyne, second to none in his position, in my opinion. And given some of the younger players still, or relatively young team, when you look around, I think that drives him. I think he doesn't want that to end. I think he's going to get a feel. It may just end and he says, okay, I've done everything I could. And I don't know how many trophies that's going to be when he says that. Or maybe he just smells it, that players he can motivate this sort of a team, this sort of performances week in and week out. And that's not easy. So, we have to give it to Pep. People, I don't understand why. I mean, I still see, I guess if you're biased from another team, I can get that, but I still see a lot of neutrals not giving the credit to what I think is the best manager of our generation, and it's certainly already going to be the best of all time.
Yeah, definitely very difficult to disagree. Hey, by the way, the trophy presentation should be happening soon, but we have a nice little break at the Etihad because we have Mark Ogden, Oggy, joining us from the Etihad. It's reasonably quiet. Mark Ogden, give me your overall reaction from today and, of course, the atmosphere as Manchester City prepare to lift for the 3rd consecutive time the Premier League title.
Yeah, well, I think last night's result kind of denied us that ability to watch City win the title today. But when a team wins the title without playing, the next day seems a little bit flat. And I've got to say, the game did lack a little bit of intensity. It was a little bit flat. And obviously, Pep made 9 changes, and we saw the B team. The B team beat Chelsea, which is quite a scary prospect. But I just think this reminds me a little bit of the days when Man United were dominant in the late 90s, early 2000s, where they won titles, and it almost became like second nature. I mean, City could win this title by double digits, 10 points, 13 points in. So I do feel now that Man City are getting used to winning the title, and yes, they've celebrated it and they enjoyed it, but I just wonder whether there's a little bit of, I won't say resting on the laurels, but when it becomes a little bit too easy, a bit too regular, that is when you've got to keep people engaged. And that's the next test for Man City and also for the Premier League, because no team has ever won 4 successive titles, and City can do that next year. And they're rewriting so many record books that could be the next one that goes. So it's keeping everybody excited and interested, because the Premier League is sold as the most exciting league in the world. And does that remain if Man City win it by 10, 12, 15 points every year?
Okay, is the focus maybe a lot on the Champions League as well as the FA Cup, or is that a burden that Pep Guardiola welcomes? Is that a burden that the team welcomes? Because you mentioned, of course, that, a little bit of an anticlimax, because obviously the victory happened due to an Arsenal loss as opposed to a major victory today. But do you think that, that quest for the treble, is that a hindrance for Pep Guardiola, something that he just can't wait to get over? Therefore, why the Premier League is perhaps taking, I hate to say it, but 3rd in priorities. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there's a sense of impatience now about the club. They want to get the Champions League done and won. If they'd have lost against Real Madrid on Wednesday, this would have been a really kind of flat atmosphere, a real kind of after event, because they're so used to winning the league now. It's 5 in 6 years. It is all about the Premier League, the Champions League. There's a guy on the pitch with a banner which said the treble, 1 down, 2 to go. And that's what it's all about. The FA Cup's in 2 weeks' time. Probably win that, even though it's against Man United, and then it's the Champions League final. So I just simply can't wait now for June the 10th and the chance to beat Inter Milan. Inter, I should say. It's not Inter Milan. I keep getting told that by Gab. We're just waiting for that game. It's all about Internazionale.
Janusz, any comments or questions for Oggy?
No, I mean, because I don't want to repeat myself. I think, as I felt, the success drives success in a way. And this season, as I've said, was maybe, I didn't think it was the best because of the fact that they've lost 4 games, that drew for 4 games. But I guess, Augie, maybe I do have a question, because just imagine, I mean, the rhythm of the season was a little bit different, right? The World Cup changed things. And okay, Manchester City has the squad to play every 2 or 3 days. But I just imagine if they had normal rhythm of games, I think we'd be talking about a season like we normally talk, even though right now, 93 goals, again, repeating for yourself, best in the league, 31 conceded, which is a lot for somebody like Manchester City, I think. And so next season, given what we see, without even looking at who they may get, I just don't see anybody coming close. And I do think the motivation for next season is going to be that quadruple, because how else do you drive? If you Pep Guardiola, we're always looking for that motivation. What motivates these players to be so excellent season after season? That could be it, and a different schedule or normal schedule, no?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think the World Cup has turned the season on its head. Some teams were doing great until the World Cup and they've fallen away. I think also the fact that City didn't play Arsenal until I think February, so it was January. It was so late in the season when they played Arsenal for the first time, and that would have changed the whole momentum as well. And I think Arsenal may be in a false position at the top of the league so far ahead because they hadn't played City and because they had a lot of tough away games at the end of the season. Liverpool away, Newcastle away, Man City away. So there's all these little factors come into it as well. And I do think if City were against a more experienced rival, if Liverpool, for instance, had been 8 points clear at the beginning of April, I think Liverpool would have gone on to win the league. I think Arsenal's inexperience and inability to close it out has probably helped City as well. But that's not taking anything away from City. They've won the title because they're the best team, the best squad, the most experienced. They just knew how to handle the running. But I think one thing we have to address as well, what I've noticed is that the negativity and hostility on social media and generally about the club winning something because of the 115 Premier League charges. That is a cloud that's hanging over the club, for good or bad. Man City fans think they're being unfairly treated and that the charges are wrong, and City deny them vehemently. A lot of opposition fans say, well, if you've broken the rules so many times, then you're winning it by, ill means, I guess. So I guess until that is resolved now, there's going to be a question mark over this team, rightly or wrongly, until it's clear. And that might take years. So are we watching the best team we've ever seen, or is there something that we don't know yet that we need to work out later down the line? So that's why there's a little bit of a strange feeling about this title win.
Yeah, just before you leave, because I know the noise is going to come in a second for the presentation. But to that point, adding to that point, Augie, do you think that also was an added initiative, a motivator for the squad and Pep Guardiola to say, you know what, regardless of all the noise, we want to get this done and get the treble, just to show you that what it's done is achieved on the football pitch? What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's used it as a kind of siege mentality. The world is against us. He said at the time that he felt when the charges were applied that the other 19 clubs who were already condemned by their rivals. Now, the rivals won't decide if City done right or wrong. It'll be decided by lawyers and legal people. So that was being a bit disingenuous by Pep. But I do think, of course it's used the motivation. And I'm pretty sure they want him in the Champions League for the same reason that over the years, UEFA have applied charges and they haven't been able to get them to stick. So there is a sense of City having, a war against the world right now. And of course it motivates them because they're winning something that they feel that the Premier League don't want them to win, So we're getting the trophy lift shortly, and it's going to be presented by a former Man City player, Alex Williams, one of their, goalkeeper from the 1980s. Not by Richard Masters, the Premier League chief executive. Now, is there a message behind that? Is the Premier League chief executive not giving the trophy for a reason, or is just letting a Man City former player hand it over? Not that it's strange, but we're in strange times.
Augie, a question, because this is incredible in itself, right? Because with all these charges, I remember Pep Guardiola saying that if he knew that something was wrong, he would immediately walk away, right? And I'm trying to believe him, right? Because a lot is at stake with all these records, with the reputation of Pep Guardiola. Imagine if these charges are true. Players are a little bit different because I always felt as a player that players are last to know, right? Even though, because I'm sure as a player, you're trying to sniff it out because there is a lot at stake. Imagine if all these records go away and it's turning back. How realistic, how true do you think? Well, I guess you won't know. But how realistic is it that that's going to happen? These charges are going to be brought and proven right.
Well, I think it's going to be. It'll take about 2 or 3 years. I mean, there are so many charges, 115 charges. And City, as they have done throughout the process, it started in March 2019, so we're already 4 years in. The City's lawyers have looked at every clause with a fine-tooth comb, so it's not going to happen quickly. So to your point about Pep, I do think that he might be concerned that his legacy, could be tarnished by this. Pep Guardiola doesn't want his legacy to have a big asterisk next to it. This is, is he the Tiger Woods of his generation, this super coach that was just the best out there? Or is there an element of Lance Armstrong and Ben Johnson? We don't know. And I guess Pep doesn't want that hanging over him either. But so it's in everybody's interest for this to be dealt with sooner or later. But it is going to be later. And until it gets dealt with, City's supporters will say that they're being unfairly treated. And City's rivals or opposition will say, well, you've cheated. Now, neither can be deemed as to be true until it's gone through a thorough process. And that's the problem, the element of doubt. But when I'm writing about it, I have to mention the charges. You can't make it negative to the point where you can't praise the team and the football they played. It's a balance you have to strike, but it's an impossible act because whichever way you go, balance or not, somebody will feel that you're siding with one side or the other. And that's not the case. You just have to be balanced and lay it out on both sides and just wait endlessly for this thing to be resolved.
You mean you can't please all football fans, Mark Ogden? How dare you say such a thing? An absolute surprise, right? But as you said, these alleged charges, and obviously City denying them, is going to take more than just a season. But guess what? Mark Ogden, thank you so much for joining us. Augie, make sure to follow him on ESPN FC. All his content. Get home safe, most importantly, my friend. And don't say Inter Milan, Internazionale. That's it.
It's hard to say that in a Mancunian accent, Elevate.
I know. Just say Inter. That's easy.
Bye, Augie. Thank you so much. All right, that's Mark Ogden. Mark Ogden from the Etihad, of course, with some excellent analysis as always. And I remain with my excellent colleague, Janusz Michallik, to, I guess put a bow on it then, because that's a good point there, Janusz, right? It's the unfortunate situation here is that we're not going to get, whatever side you're on, whatever side of the coin you're on, whether you're an ardent Manchester City supporter or you're extremely, extremely for finding out what's happening, we're not going to find out for years to come, it seems.
Oh, absolutely. And as I said, for players, they're just out there to play, right? I mean, they're not looking themselves how much they cost and how much they, how they were being brought, right? I mean, they have a task to tell Pep Guardiola, unless he's incredibly naive. I do believe that he probably doesn't know. Maybe he doesn't want to find out. I don't know, because I'm not in there. But, judging just what he's done and what the team is doing, it is incredible. It doesn't, however much they cost, you still have to make that team play in such way. I understand they're great players. Other teams have great players. You look at Chelsea and the sort of money they have spent, Arsenal spent, Liverpool spent. And not everybody plays in this way. But yes, to me, it's incredible because here we are talking about one of the greatest teams, perhaps when it's all said and done in the history of our game. And there is that cloud, there is that asterisk. And in the end, as a former player, I hope it's not true. But of course, until we find out, we'll never know. And nevertheless, we're here to talk about football. And this was another excellent season from Manchester City.
Absolutely. And as you said earlier on, a dynasty, 5 out of the last 6 seasons, 9 in total, 3rd consecutive league title for Manchester City. And they're still chasing that Manchester United 90s ghost of getting a treble. And if they do, just like Janusz Michallik said, Pep Guardiola will surely be regarded as the greatest club manager the game has ever seen. But we'll have to wait for that one. In the meantime, much more content on ESPN FC, YouTube, social, digital, and so much more. Janusz Michallik, Luis Miguel Echegaray, have a fantastic rest of your Sunday, and we will see you on Monday. PL Express, I'm sure, is coming with Janusz and Kay Murray as well. We'll see you next time. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye.